Welcome back, guys. Let's talk about the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, which will complete my Nightmare on Elm Street reviews. This is one of the films in the franchise that is the most hated, and I can see why. In ways, I could see why, but I don't think, like any of these other films, they are some of the worst horror movies ever made. Like, people always say Freddy's Dead is one of the worst horror movies ever made. No, not at all. Not by a long shot. Even if I didn't like it, I would have thought it was bad, but not nearly like one of the worst things ever made. Like, seriously, that in this remake, which this remake, I feel like Freddy's Dead and this one both get the most shit because they do so many things that are different in a way that irks people. Like, Freddy's Dead is way more humorous and way more stupid, so it really made people upset. And this remake is, of course, a remake, so of course it's going to get shit, regardless, even if before they even see the movie. So, I saw this in theaters in 2010, and really did enjoy it. I was only like 16 years old, so I was like, wow, cool, this was really fun. But over the years, rewatching it over and over again, my thoughts have weirdly been like, I really loved it whenever I saw it in theaters because I was younger. Then I kind of strayed away from it, and then in the past couple of years rewatching it, I think I like it more. Like, this one keeps changing in terms of how I feel about it. But this one, to me, it does some cool things for a remake. It doesn't completely, like, it follows the basic plot of the first film, but it also does things differently, especially in the second act, or in the second and third act. Like, as the movie builds, it does change up the story. Like, the first act, I feel like, is essentially the first movie again, in a way, and then like the second and third act, it really does change because they go different places and do different things, and certain characters survive and certain characters aren't even in the movie. Like, the cop character, the dad character, isn't even in this movie. No John Saxton character, like, so that's weird that he's gone. Like, the cop dad character is gone from this movie, that Nancy just has the mother. But starting out, the opening kill I thought was alright. Like, it wasn't too bad. It was just, we've seen it a million times in these films, so it's like, it didn't pack a punch. Even though the opening kill was, like, it worked in context with how it builds these characters to realize that something is happening. Like Nancy and Chris know that something is going, like, something was possessing Dean. Like, Dean literally cut his throat open with a knife, and then you see in his nightmare that Freddy's doing this, but in real life it just looks like he just committed suicide. And I like that contrast between how that built and made these characters realize that what they're in for. So I just thought that was a cool opening, even though this movie overall is way more quick than the original in terms of it doesn't take its time with these characters. They're really not very, like, they're not very interesting, but there are some I like more than others, but they're not as interesting as the original one or even a lot of the sequels. It's definitely a product of its time. It's definitely a 2010 movie where it feels like you can't take time off with these characters. You gotta have thrills, you gotta have kills, you gotta have jump scares. And this has a lot of stupid jump scares in it. And I liked after the opening kill with Dean, like, it does shift to Chris, who is the equivalent of Tina from the first movie, and she, you get enough time with her like Tina that I actually like this character a lot. I honestly liked her more than Nancy herself in this movie, who Rooney Mara plays. I think Rooney Mara, the first half of the movie is really bad, and then the second half she's just adequate. Like, it sucks to say that she's bad because Rooney Mara is a good actress, but it's just like, from the production value I've heard from this movie, like from the production stories, that she almost quit acting because of this movie. I wonder if she purposefully acted this way in the movie just to make a point. Like, she acted very quote-unquote bland and emo-like, but it makes sense with, like, her character and how her character and all these other kids are affected by this pedophile whenever they were kids. So it's interesting with the Nancy character, because I don't like her as much as Chris, and Chris I like more, and Katie Cassidy just did really good. And like they just did a good job of building it up like Tina, and they did give her enough time. Like I liked the Chris character more out of anybody, honestly. Like she's my favorite character out of the whole movie. And I was like, it just surprises me that that girl was the one who made it through, but like this, or made it my favorite character because the actress was pretty good in it. And then after she dies, like Jesse, the character who is replaced, like the equivalent of Rod from the first one, but his name is Jesse, like from part 2. This Jesse character, after Dean dies, he goes and sleeps with Chris because they were in a relationship first. And then that iconic kill happens again, where she gets pulled up the bed, pulled up the walls, and then gets slashed. But they do it differently in this one, and I didn't mind that, honestly. Like, it's creepier in the original where she's going up the walls and blood's just everywhere. She's screaming. In this one, it was kind of cool because, like, she would fly up in the air and then, like, you see the slash marks on her stomach and then she falls down. I thought that was pretty cool, but the story is basically at the beginning of the movie just the equivalent of the first one with different character names besides Nancy and Quentin. Quentin's a new name, but Nancy's the only name that is the same as the first film. So it's funny that it's really just the first act is the same movie again, basically, essentially. But I mean, I was fine with that. Like, it wasn't really a disservice to the movie. It's just like they just made it. They built it to where it started out like the first one, but then they changed it as it went along. And as I was watching it, like especially the first the first act of it, it's like it had so many stupid jump scares, and it really did it a lot at the beginning. Again, the beginning and the first act and the second and the third act to me feel like there's such a drastic difference between the two, because like I said, the first act is so much like the first film, but it has a lot of stupid ass jump scares. And I'm not saying that there aren't jump scares throughout the movie, but there's way more at the beginning than the end. Like, they tried to definitely push those jump scares at the beginning of the movie, and it just annoyed me that watching it again, it's like these jump scares are so stupid. Like, the first movie didn't rely on that, and they even have a shot from the first movie which is a recreated shot, but it's effective in this too, where later at the end, towards the end of the movie, whenever Nancy sees Chris dead, like Nancy sees Tina dead in the original, like she sees her body bag, that was actually effective because it wasn't a stupid jump scare, even though it just copied from the first movie with her in a body bag, but still, that was effective. And it has so many stupid jump scares in it that it just annoyed me that, like, you got one good scare but it's just a copy of the original. And I really liked because Jesse is the Rod character of this movie where he goes to prison and he dies. But I really love the fact that whenever he gets slashed, like his heart gets literally pulled out of his stomach. Like, that was a cool kill. He in the dream world, he's just sitting there hanging up, and I love the fact that Freddy says this line, which is really an awesome line and an underrated line for this movie, where he says, where Freddy's like talking to Jesse while he's dying, and he said, after the heart stops beating, the brain's still active for 7 minutes. That means we got 6 more minutes to play. Like, that's a great line, and that's actually really makes him creepy in that scene, Jackie Earle Haley. And I guess I'll bring up Jackie Earle Haley right now. I was going to later, but Jackie Earle Haley in this movie, I know that you can't replace Robert Englund. You can't. Because it's fucking Robert Englund. He's the most iconic, one of the most iconic horror characters ever, is Freddy Krueger. And, like, you couldn't replace him, but honestly, Jackie Earle Haley is not that bad. I watched this again, and I was like, I really don't think that this guy is a bad... Like, he's a good actor anyways, but I'm rewatching it, I'm like, this guy isn't bad. It's just, he does try to be a little different, and I think it's because of the studio interference, too, that he probably didn't have free reins to do what he wanted. I think he was just negated to be kind of like Robert Englund, where... But it just reminded me, like, he didn't feel... Like, it reminded me of Robert Englund, but not in a way where it was, like, insulting. Like, this guy was doing an alright impression of Robert Englund's Freddy. And it wasn't an insult. And I thought that Jackie Earle Haley is totally fine in this. And I feel like people don't Like, I don't feel like people should give him a lot of credit. I mean, he's fine, but like, people shouldn't shit on him. Like, he's not bad in this movie, I don't think. I enjoyed him rewatching it again. I thought he was fine, especially that scene with where he said the heart thing and like how we got 6 more minutes to play, like to Jesse after he killed him. Like, that's great. Lines like that are great. And whenever you see his past, him without the makeup, Jackie Earle Haley, I think that's good too, and I think he's effective, and I think he is creepy in this movie. And I love the fact that as the movie goes on, you realize, and this is a difference from the original that I actually really do enjoy in this movie, a really cool little thing, is that I liked how all these kids are connected that are being killed, and we're at a preschool, and the kids, whenever they see the kids in their nightmares, like in all the other movies, but in the remake it's different, whenever they see these little kid versions, or these little kids in their dreams, it's just them as little kids. Like whenever Chris is at Dean's funeral, she looks over and is crying and she sees a little girl with slash marks, and that's just Chris as a little kid. Or whenever Nancy, like whenever you see the flashbacks, whenever the mom confronts Nancy about Freddy Krueger, it shows little Nancy, and I love the fact that all these kids that are in the nightmares are just them. Like it's kind of like their repressed dreams of whatever happened, pedophilia, whatever, with Freddy, and I think that's really cool. I just thought that was a really cool way of having, instead of just having creepy kids in the original and the other films, which is totally awesome as well, but I like the fact that these little kids were just little versions of these characters, like just there in the dreams. Like, that's really awesome. I really thought that was cool. And now Freddy, I also want to mention, because whenever we get to the point where Nancy's mom, played by Connie Britton in this, who's fine in this too, whenever she tells the truth about Fred Krueger, in this one it's different because Freddy Krueger runs away. He doesn't even go to like court. He like literally just runs away, and they never find him. And then like, well, I mean the police never find him, but then the adults go and murder him the same way like the first film. But I thought it was interesting that in this one they say straight up that he's a pedophile. Or wait, do they even say that straight up? I don't know, actually. Now that I said that, I don't know if they did. Maybe I'm just thinking that in my mind, that it's heavily implied in this one more than the other films. But I might be wrong. I don't think either one of this remake or the originals even said he was a pedophile, but it seems strongly implied in this one, even more so in this movie than the other ones, which I thought was fine because it makes this character so damn unlikable more, that he's a really maniacal villain, like to do horrible shit like that. Like, I like that. So I really did think that was kind of a cool little, even though it's not really an addition because it's implied kind of in the originals too, but it feels like it's more heavily implied in this one. I don't think it's straight up said in the originals, and I don't know if it's said in this one, but it feels way more implied in this one that he's a pedophile. And I like the fact that the ending, like I said, is different. Like, the boyfriend doesn't die in this one. It's Nancy and Quentin go to that little abandoned preschool where they were when they were kids, and they find that secret cave, which is like he just said it was a cave for them when they were kids, but like it's just this hole in the wall that they go into, and he did stuff to him. And I like that ending. I like how that changed the ending to this one to the first one. Like, this wasn't a straight up, like, the whole movie is just the same movie again. Like, I like how the first act is the same movie, but then as it goes along, it does smartly change the plot. Which is something that I don't think this gets credit for. It does change the plot for a remake. It's not straight up the same movie. And as it goes along from the first act, where it is the same movie, then it goes and changes. Where they go to that abandoned school. They go down into that room and find Freddy, and Nancy pulls him out and they kill him. But I like the fact that Nancy and Quentin both survive, and I just thought that was a cool place to end it, a cool creepy place. I thought that it felt more warranted in a way to have them kill Freddy off with their backstory in this movie about him doing awful things to them. And it's not implied in the other movies that it's like that. It's just Freddy's just this guy coming after kids from the parents who killed from the parents who killed him because he killed other kids. But he didn't do anything to the characters in the original film. It's just they're being killed because of their parents' mistakes, and in this one, they are being killed because of they told the truth. They told the truth about what creepy stuff he did to them. So again, that makes it a really cool difference. And like I said, just that place at the end is a cool place to end it. That was a cool place for the movie to end, and a cool way for these characters to feel. It felt more warranted in a way, even though it works perfectly in the first movie, where they're not connected with Freddy in a way where he did stuff to him. It's just the parents burned him alive because he killed other kids. So the kids are paying for the parents killing him. And in this one, I liked how warranted it was whenever they killed Freddy because of all the creepy shit Freddy did to the kids. So Nancy killing him felt like a worthy way to end it. Like, I liked how she killed him because she was his favorite. Like, he probably did the worst to her. So I like that she's the one who killed him. And she had a horrible past and connection to him. Even though there wasn't that in the original, this one works well on its own as that they had a past with him. And I thought it was really cool. But then the movie ruins it because it does have this stupid-ass ending where Nancy and the mom come home, and the mom's right next to a mirror behind her, and she leans down, puts her keys down, and she leans up, and Freddy's behind her in the mirror, and the mom's just like, I'm just glad you're safe. And then Nancy screams, and then Freddy goes and gets his claws through her face and drags the mom into the mirror, and then Nancy screams, and that's it. I thought that was really dumb. Like, the ending last like 30 seconds was really stupid. Like, it wasn't the worst thing ever, but it was just really dumb. It was like, wow. I don't know, like, that, again, that's perfectly how to describe this movie, in which it tries to do things differently. It does do things differently, which things I actually appreciate, but it has a lot of stupid jump scares that ruin it in a lot of ways. So I don't hate this as nearly as much as everybody else does, but I think that I can see why people don't like it. I can see why people think this is such a difference and unsuperior to the original, of course. And but it annoys me that, like, I feel like there are things that I do enjoy that people should give credit for. Like, the movie is different after the first act. Like, it does change, where they really do change the story up, and the characters are not super interesting. They're definitely not as interesting as the first one, even though I like Chris a lot in this movie. But I think that it still is not a terrible movie. It's really not the worst ever, like Freddy's Dead either. Like, I don't think either of those are some of the worst movies ever. I think they're both all right. I think this one is definitely all right too. It has some good moments, some cool story changes to it, but the characters are lame in a lot of ways, and the jump scares are stupid. So it's a mixed bag. And rewatching it, I didn't dislike it. I did enjoy my time with a lot of it. Just a lot of it I thought was stupid, like the last time. So yeah, pretty much all I could say about that. Oh, and before I end this, I want to mention this guy who directed this. His name's Samuel Bayer. Directed only one thing before this, and it wasn't a movie. It was a concert, Green Day Bold in a Bible, which, if this guy could make, like, it's so funny, because if this guy who made literally a concert music video movie, and he made this, like, this is actually pretty adequate for, like, your first real directing job. Like, that was actually surprising. Like, the first thing you made was that, like, literally just a concert movie, like, and then you made this, like, that's pretty adequate. That's not too bad, like, for your first real movie. So yeah, this one was pretty, again, just all right, perfectly adequate. Like, it's not terrible, it's not great at all, it's not even good in a lot of moments, but it's got some good things about it, it's got some bad things about it. So I'm really just, again, mixed on this. Definitely not one of the worst things ever. So now I guess I finished the Nightmare franchise, because like I said, I talked about Freddy vs. Jason already when I talked about the Friday movies. And I think the next franchise I will do is the Hellraiser franchise, because I have not seen any Hellraiser movie after the first one, and I'll rewatch the first one too. So I'm excited and scared at the same time, because I hear that almost all the sequels are awful. So bear with me on that. We'll see, but next up, franchise is Hellraiser. So thanks for watching.